My fiancée wanted to try other men before marriage in a 1-month ethical non-monogamy experiment, while I stayed faithful. So I made her sign rules, documented every lie, ended it when she broke them, kicked her out, refunded the ring, took the honeymoon solo, and left her giving healing coach advice online while I actually moved on. I didn't know my fiancée wanted to sample the menu until she tried to turn our wedding into a Yelp review. We'd been together 3 years, engaged for 8 months, lived in a 2-bedroom I painted on weekends because she liked moody jewel tones, and I liked pretending I knew what teal actually is. Her name's Tessa. She's the type who writes Instagram captions like essays and says, "we," when she means I. I'm Ethan. I fix broken systems for a living, which is great training for dating someone who believes feelings are an MBA minor. 2 months before our Save the Dates went out, she scheduled a relationship strategy offsite. That's a real text. I assumed it was a cute date night. She booked a co-working space conference room, brought LaCroix, printed an agenda. At the top, Q2 relationship OKRs, objectives and key results, for those who haven't been trapped on LinkedIn. Bullet 3 said, explore ethical non-monogamy to establish a confident sexual baseline before marriage. I read it twice because my brain refused to parse the sentence before marriage next to non-monogamy, like it was a normal sandwich. Walk me through this, I said, as neutrally as a man can while rethinking the square footage of his sanity. It's not about you, she said, which is the starter pistol for a sentence that is absolutely about you. I just never had a proper phase. College was weird, my ex was possessive, and I've only been with 4 men. I don't want to go into marriage with FOMO. If I get the curiosity out now, I can choose us from a place of abundance. She said abundance, like she was launching a skincare line. Define get the curiosity out. A month, she said, already flipping to a page labeled logistics. A sabbatical from exclusivity. Very clear boundaries. It's about data, not emotion. I stared at the page. She had categories. Emotional intimacy? No. Sleepovers? No. Condoms? Yes. Discretion? Mandatory. Honesty? Always. It was like a science fair project where the volcano is your self-respect. At the bottom, retro, weekly, to share learnings. Learnings. Like she's going to circle back after some guy named Grayson and give me takeaways. Where am I in this plan? I asked. You're my anchor, she said, beaming like she'd solved monogamy with a whiteboard. We'll be stronger. And to be safe, I'd prefer you not sleep with anyone else during this. I don't want to risk catching feelings on both sides. So you want an open relationship where one door is a painting. She blinked. That's a negative framing. I didn't flip the table. I didn't make a speech about vows you haven't said yet. I sat there and asked questions like I was writing a requirements doc for a bug I couldn't patch. Where did this come from? She cited a podcast hosted by 2 very symmetrical people in matching hoodies, a book with a peach on the cover, and her coworker Jules, who opened her marriage and now they're thriving. They separated 2 weeks later. I learned this when Jules asked to crash on our couch. Who are you planning to explore with? She had a list, names. She called it a curiosity file, a barista who remembered her order, a yoga instructor who once complimented her crow pose, 2 men at her office, one single, one emotionally single, a neighbor in our building whose dog she follows. She planned this. My stomach did the thing elevators do between floors. I don't mind honesty. I do mind scheduling. Why not break up and come back when you're done sampling? I asked. She reached across the table and touched my hand like I was a confused client. Because I love you. I want to marry you. I just don't want to wonder. This is me being mature. That word did a backflip off a bridge. There's a version of me that flips the table, proposes therapy, and then spends a year bleeding slowly. I respect that version. He deserves a parade. There's also the version I am, the guy who documents problems for a living and lets systems hang themselves with their own logic. If she wanted a pilot program, I would give her governance. I said carefully, if we do this, it has to be written down. Dates, boundaries, contingencies, out clauses. No public mess. We owe each other that. Are her eyes lit? Yes, yes, a charter. Exactly, a charter. We spent 2 hours drafting rules. No sleepovers, no repeat nights with the same person, no coworkers because HR exists. Full panel testing at the clinic she likes before and after. No one in our friend circle, no one in our building. Total discretion. Weekly retros on Sunday afternoons like a book club for bad ideas. End date in 30 days. After that, full monogamy or fully done. She signed it with a flourish, like it was a treaty between respectable nations. I countersigned, then emailed a PDF to both our private folders and printed 2 copies for the fireproof box. And, I said, like a man who has watched enough courtroom dramas to know the closing move, we're pausing wedding planning expenses until after the pilot. No more deposits. Let's not intertwine finances further during an experiment. She hesitated, microsecond, because the next tab in her binder was Florist Shortlist. Then she nodded. That's fair. What I did not say, I had already pulled every contract we'd signed and checked refund windows. I had already copied our joint savings into an account in my name that she can see but not move. I had already checked the ring receipt, full value buyback within a year, if upgrading, 80% if returning. I had already called my landlord to ask about removing a tenant for personal safety and incompatibility, and gotten the exact steps. 30-day notice to vacate for one party if the other assumes full rent, locks changed only after move-out or abandonment, move a lockbox to the super's office. I don't like chaos. I like clean transitions. The next morning, she kissed me like we'd made a brave adult choice. Then she put on lipstick I'd never seen and went to yoga. At 2:14 p.m., her location shared to our family group pinged in a neighborhood with no yoga. At 2:16, she turned off location sharing. By 4:30, I had a screenshot of her public Venmo, paid to a name from her curiosity file. At 5:12, she texted, "Home by 7, making that lemon pasta you like. How's your day?" As if spaghetti is an apology. I did not rage. I did not snoop passwords or install spyware. That's how you lose a court case and your soul. I did what our charter allowed. I asked for the retro on Sunday. She arrived on time with a list of learnings. She used phrases like, "I learned that eye contact is vulnerable," and "I learned that alcohol complicates clarity," and "I learned that I still thought about you during." She smiled like a student reporting on a museum trip. I asked, "How did it feel leaving?" She said, "Sad but empowered." The word empowered has never done less work. Week 1 was education. She tried the barista, awkward, the yoga instructor, flexible but emotionally unavailable in a way that was intriguing, and the single coworker, astonishingly bad at sexting but kind. She wrote everything down. I listened. I said thank you for sharing, like a therapist who charges by the minute and lives in a cabin with zero Wi-Fi. I did not date. I ran. I lifted. I went to my buddy's place and played FIFA like I was 19. I slept like a doorstops. She came home on Thursday with a hickey. She tried to call yoga mat burn. I made her tea. She cried because this is harder than I thought, then did a makeup tutorial on TikTok about dewy skin. On day 9, her emotionally single coworker, whose actual wife was recovering from a C-section, fun twist, posted a photo of a rooftop drink on his close friend's Instagram. She was in the reflection of his sunglasses. If you want to cheat discreetly, don't date men who treat reflections like selfies. I didn't blow it up. I took a picture of that picture and filed it. I pulled our charter and highlighted no coworkers. I printed another copy. I checked the ring policy again. We were at month 8. Plenty of runway. On day 12, she asked for an extension. I don't think 30 days is realistic. I'm just starting to unlock things. Like humility? I asked, too sweet. Like my true self. Can we do 60? Absolutely, I said, and watched relief turn her shoulders into a hammock. But 60 days means we're definitely pausing the engagement. It's not ethical to wear a ring while exploring. Let's call it what it is. Her face did a thing a ringed face does when you ask it to be bare in public. People will ask questions. We'll say we're focusing on growth, the mature thing. She nodded, badly. We drafted Amendment 1. I added a clause. If either of us violates a boundary, the pilot ends and the violator moves out within 72 hours. She signed. I put the ring in its little box and slid the box into the safe like a baby I didn't want to meet again. I called the jeweler. They said, we can give you 80% back if you return, 100% if you upgrade later. I said, hold that thought, and scheduled an appointment for day 30, +1, in case the pilot failed on schedule. I canceled the videographer within the refund window. I moved our honeymoon miles to my account and put a courtesy hold on a solo itinerary that hits Lisbon, Seville, and a soccer match I've wanted to see since I was 12. I requested new checks without her name. I spoke to our utility providers and added a passcode, only I know. None of that is revenge. It's adulting with a helmet. Week 2's retro, she came in with a blazer like she was running a board meeting. I have an update, she said, eyes shining. I've realized something. The single men are chaotic. The men in relationships are more grounded. They know how to communicate. So I think the exploration should preferentially include partnered men, because they have boundaries. It's actually safer. You want to sleep with people in relationships because they're too busy to text you good morning. That's a cynical framing. It's a sentence. She tried to make it a feminist thing. Women in patriarchy are forced to suppress desire. I'm rejecting that. No, I said, and that's the first time I used that word out loud. You're rejecting our agreement. No coworkers, no building, no friends, no partnered people. The rule didn't change because your libido read a blog. She huffed and then cried and then hugged me and then slept like a rock. The next day, she DM'd a married photographer who shot her last brand partnership to ask about coffee. I know because the photographer's wife, who follows me because I built their laundry room shelves and we swapped numbers for the wood stain tips, screenshotted it and texted, "Bro, come get your girl." Cool world. Day 17. She violated the no building clause by bumping into the guy with the dog in our elevator. His name is Chad, of course it is. He is the kind of fit where you can see the outline of his deltoids through a hoodie, and the kind of dumb where he thinks a cutting board is a plate. She told me at retro, glowy with pride, like she had brought me a seashell. It wasn't a big deal, she said. We just kissed. I needed to know if I could feel spontaneous. You can feel your suitcases, I said in my head. Out loud. That's a boundary violation. I'm being honest, she said, as if honesty dissolves the fact of the thing you're honest about. I printed the amendment, circled no building, circled violations end the pilot, and put it on the table. She cried. I made tea. She said she would be more careful. I circled end the pilot, tapped it, and slid the paper back to her. She didn't sign. I didn't push. I waited. Day 21, she broke no coworkers with the guy whose wife had a baby 6 weeks ago because they had an emotional connection through art. He's in paid media buying digital ads. His art is a spreadsheet. This time, I didn't wait. I called our landlord. Hey, it's Ethan in 4B. I'm assuming the lease alone. Tessa's moving out within 30 days. Here's my new ACH. The super said, copy, because supers are therapists without couches. I scheduled movers for Friday, a cleaner for Saturday, and a lock change for Sunday at noon. I went to a stationery store and bought a pack of calm white envelopes because I like my petty to look tasteful. I wrote 3 letters. One to Tessa. Per the attached charter and amendment, you've violated terms multiple times. See Exhibits AC. The pilot is over. Please remove your belongings by Friday at 6 p.m. A detailed move-out checklist is enclosed. I have assumed the lease. Your name is off utilities. The ring is in the safe and will be returned per policy on date. Please confirm the best address for forwarding. One to her parents, who liked me, and who would hear this as mean boyfriend dumped our genius daughter. I love your daughter, but she asked to date others and did so. I agreed to boundaries. She broke them. I'm making a boundary of my own. And one to myself, which I put on the fridge. Do not negotiate with a person who calls cheating curriculum. Love is not a group project. I scheduled a brunch with her parents for Sunday. We picked a place with pancakes so no one could pretend this was a war. I brought the binder. I am not proud of bringing a binder to brunch. I am proud of using tabs. Friday. She texted at noon. Heading out with Jules tonight. Girl time. At 12:07, Jules texted me. I'm at my sister's. She told you girl time? LOL, sorry. I found her curiosity file. She stored it in our shared drive because hubris uses folders. Had a new tab. Chad. I ordered 4 wardrobe boxes. The mover looked at the art leaning against the hallway wall and asked, fragile? I said, emotionally. At 5:54, she walked in smelling like a man who uses tobacco and soap as personality, saw the boxes, and froze like a deer reading an eviction notice. What is this? Boundary, I said and handed her my envelope. She read the first page and went straight to performative hurt. You went through my phone. Nope. You told me at Retro. Your friend told me because she has ethics. And Chad told me because Chad asked if he should Venmo me for parking. You planned this, she said, like the planning was the crime. You asked for a month to sleep with other men before our wedding like it was Whole30. You broke the rules you wrote. I am ending the pilot. Please pack. She tried all the doors. You're controlling. You're punishing me for being honest. A real man would fight for us. You're throwing away something beautiful because of a technicality. Technicality is a cute word for other people's boundaries. Pack, I said again. And then I left because I've seen how these fights go in movies where someone ends up throwing a vase. I went to my friend Parker's. We ordered wings. He queued up a stupid action movie where the plot is what if physics didn't have a union? At 9:23, she texted, You're heartless. At 10:05, I'm sorry, I'm scared. At 10:46, can we talk? I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and fed it a wing. Or, Saturday morning, I went home at 9. Her stuff was half in boxes and half in piles because performance art is still art. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor in my college hoodie, crying into a mug like a person in a coffee commercial about grief. I made toast. I sat on the floor across from her. We can do this kindly, I said. Or we can do it loudly. Please choose kindly. She chose a third option, a TED Talk. I think you're afraid of my fullness. You need control. You would rather punish me than grow. You're choosing scarcity. I stared at the woman I planned to marry and felt nothing but the clean white sensation of air through a room that has just had a window opened. Scarcity is when you promise fidelity and then schedule field trips, I said. Abundance is packing your own boxes. The movers arrived. Tessa discovered Petty has logistics. They wrapped her bar cart like it had a soul. They sealed her makeup drawers with tape like a priest blessing a coffin. She tried to tell them to leave a box for later. The mover said, Sorry, ma'am, our work order says all. She glared at me. I drank coffee. She left at 1:12 p.m. with Jules, 3 plants, and a framed print that says Choose Joy, which kept falling over in the trunk because universe. Sunday brunch with her parents. We sat by the window and I ordered pancakes the size of a manhole cover. I slid them the gentle envelope. Her mom read. Her dad read. Her mom cried like moms cry when the story you give them is worse than the one they imagined. Her dad looked at me the way men look at men they want to both hug and high five. You handled this, he said. Tessa arrived 20 minutes late in sunglasses because shame believes in UV protection. She said I was making it public. Her mom said, Sweetie, you asked to sleep with other people before your wedding. Her dad said nothing and buttered a pancake like it owed him money. She tried a last Hail Mary. We can still try again. Now that I've explored, I can choose you. She said it like picking me is the prize you win after you've sampled Costco. Marriage isn't a power-up, I said. It's a decision you don't outsource to strangers' anatomy. I stood, hugged her mom, shook her dad's hand, paid the bill, and left. I went straight to the jeweler. The woman behind the counter gave me the same face a bartender gives a guy who orders an expensive whiskey neat at noon on a Sunday. I handed her the ring and the receipt. She processed the return like a nurse removing stitches. 80% back to your card, she said. If you ever want to upgrade, we'll be here. I said, I'll upgrade my standards. On Monday, I emailed the vendors we'd canceled within the window to thank them for their flexibility and referred my buddy and his girlfriend to the florist because she's actually a genius with eucalyptus. I called the airline, moved the miles, and booked Lisbon. I requested my PTO. My boss asked if everything was okay. I said, everything is honest. He gave me an extra day because he's been divorced and knows what a passport does to your brain. Tessa tried a smear campaign, as is tradition. She told her group chat I blindsided her and weaponized paperwork. 2 of her friends DM'd me screenshots because they, too, like ethics. I sent them the charter and amendment with no commentary. One wrote back, she really put no coworkers in writing and then did a coworker. The other wrote, I told her not to date Chad. He microwaves fish in the break room. We must all carry our own red flags to the dump. The married coworker's wife, who had just birthed a human, sent me a thank you note with a picture of their baby's foot. You saved me time, she wrote. I won't forget. I forwarded the note to the HR director at Tessa's company with the subject line, FYI, Code of Conduct issue. Not seeking action, just documenting. HR replied, we'll handle it. They did. He got moved along. Tessa posted a vague, sometimes people can't handle your growth story, and then took a social media break because growth gets lonely when nobody claps. I left for Portugal 2 weeks later. On the plane, I wrote a list titled, Things I Will Not Be in Charge of Again. It included other people's curiosity, other people's loopholes, and other people's definitions of love that require me to sit in a lobby while they tour the hotel. In Lisbon, I ate pastéis de nata, like they were a food group. In Seville, I stood in a church and felt not religious, but grateful in a way that tasted like water after mowing the lawn. In Madrid, I watched a soccer match and screamed at strangers in a language we shared for 90 minutes. I did not post thirst traps. I did post a picture of a tiny espresso with the caption, monogamy with myself for a while. My DMs filled with proud of you, and one, you look hot actually, from a friend who knows timing is a sport. When I got home, the apartment felt like exhaled breath. I changed the locks. I put her mail in a neat stack and texted her to pick it up from the super. She tried one last time. Can we talk? I miss you. I replied, I miss who I thought you were. She sent a 5-paragraph essay about societal conditioning that ended with, I forgive you. I laughed so hard I scared my plant. Jules lasted 2 more weeks before she texted me, I hate to ask, but can I crash for a few nights? I sent her a link to an Airbnb and a screenshot of the clause, no friends. She replied, fair. Good for Jules. 6 months later, Tessa got into coaching. She sells intimacy containers on Zoom and posts about embodied boundaries, which is very funny if you've ever watched someone ask a married man out for coffee because he communicates. I do not follow her. Sometimes the algorithm slips one through and I block it like a goalie. People ask if I'm angry. I was for a minute. Then I got busy. I fixed the wobbly stool in my kitchen that wobbled for 3 years because we were always too tired. I replaced the shower head. I learned to make an omelet that flips instead of scrambles. I stopped asking permission to feel comfortable. I started dating a woman who laughs at my jokes and tells me when I'm wrong in a way that doesn't sound like a TED Talk. We move slow. We define words. When she says abundance, she means 2 scoops. Sometimes I think about that conference room with LaCroix and agendas, and the moment she slid me a plan for how to love her and other people at the same time, I think about how calm I felt saying yes while planning my no. People say revenge is a dish best served cold. It's actually best served documented, refundable, and returned within policy. And if you can do it without raising your voice, congratulations, you're an adult. TLDR, my fiancée scheduled a relationship strategy off-site to propose a 1-month ethical non-monogamy pilot so she could try other men before marriage while I stayed monogamous as her anchor. I agreed, on paper, with strict rules. No coworkers, no neighbors, no friends, weekly check-ins, hard-end date, and all wedding spending paused. She broke the rules. Coworker, neighbor, married guy, asked for an extension and called cheating learnings. I ended the pilot, removed her from the lease and utilities, returned the ring for a refund, canceled vendors within refund windows, helped a wronged wife by forwarding proof to HR, and took our honeymoon miles on a solo trip to Portugal and Spain. She tried to smear me. Receipts ended that. Her downfall is a coaching Instagram. My win is peace, a new lock, and an omelet that flips.